This is Guardian Radio, your station for up-to-the-minute news, intelligent, interactive, and engaging conversation. 96.9 FM. The views and opinions of the hosts and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the position of the management and staff of Guardian Network.
Good morning and welcome to Guardian Radio AM. Today is Monday. Can you believe it? It's not Thursday or it's not Friday, but it's Monday, June 13th. And I'm here. I'm here live. Once again, this is C.A. Nuri, and I shall be your host for today's show. And I have an excellent guest today. I'm kind of excited. And it's someone who I should have spoken to, interviewed, have a conversation with on Friday, and he has agreed to be on the show with me today. Today, I am privileged to be in the company of a wordsmith, a creator of words, one who makes words come alive, one who conjures up colorful images, words with speech, one whose words evokes music, who births life, who soothes beasts, right? I wanted to sound flowery when I came on today because today I have a Bahamian poet laureate. And some people ask, what's this about? It's about culture and giving voice to people who are heroes in the movement of moving the Bahamas forward culturally. And today I have no other than Obadiah Michael Smith. Welcome to Guardian Radio and AM. Pull the mic closer to your...
Okay.
Yes, I can hear you better now. So.
Wonderful.
Good.
Absolutely.
So I want to have a conversation with you, right? And let me tell you the reason why. You are the only Bahamian poet who I know who does nothing else but poetry. And I said, that's impossible. And I remember when you said to me, you say, see, I'm no longer going to work in an established place. I'm going to be a full-time poet and have poetry pay for me to live. And I said, this man must be crazy because that's impossible. How can poetry sustain you? And right after that, like weeks, months after that conversation, you went off to Africa. And I said, how do you get to afford that? Of poetry. So I want to go backwards. I want to have your narrative on how you decided to become a poet. But I want to hear about Africa because this Africa experience, and me being a Pan-Africanist or a person who pursuing to be that, right? And celebrating of Africa. I want to hear about how you get to Africa and what you did in Africa as a poet. So I'll let you speak now.
Right. The first question was...
How did you get to Africa?
How did I get there? Interestingly, I always take advantage of being invited to poetry festivals, right? So I get invited to a poetry festival in Cuba, and it lasts, say, for a week, and then I decide that I'm going to spend a month, right?
In Cuba?
Yeah, so I did that several times. I always sort of extend my time based upon around or beyond the festival itself.
Do you speak Spanish?
Yeah, I studied Spanish at Universidad de Costa Rica.
Okay.
But I speak French far better because I used to live in Paris, right?
Excellent.
Yeah.
Finish the story, go ahead.
Yeah, and so I got invited to Kenya to a poetry festival called Kiss Stretch Poetry Festival in Kisii in Kenya, and I was due to spend a week there, and I ended up spending 4 years.
But how did you get there? See, I understand the invite. Hey, Obadiah, I love your poetry. You need to come to Africa. You need to come to Kenya. How do you get from Cuba to Kenya?
Cuba. No, it's just that I have gone to quite a number of poetry festivals. I think I've went like 7 times to the poetry festival in Cuba. I went to a poetry festival in Nicaragua. I went to a poetry festival in Costa Rica. I went to the biggest poetry festival on earth in Medellin in Colombia, and and then the last one I attended was on the way home from Africa. I went to a poetry festival in Romania.
Nice.
Yeah. So the thing that is interesting is that when you get invited to a poetry festival, usually you get funded, right?
But you mean these people invited you and paid for you to go?
Some of them, right? Because it was like that in Costa Rica. In Medellin, Colombia, they paid like everything, and they even gave you money, right? And
They give you money to spend?
They gave you a stipend, right? And the same thing with the poetry festival I attended in Mexico. I went to like 3-4 poetry festivals in Mexico, but one of them, everything was paid for. So that is always fun. But when you get invited to a poetry festival, you get this beautiful sort of invitation, right? Mm-hmm. And so with that invitation, I can send it out to my patrons and say, hey, I'm representing the Bahamas. And then I would get some funding because of that, right? Which is always really, really wonderful and really encouraging.
So that's how you got to Kenya?
I would have raised funds to get to Kenya, but I was only supposed to have spent a week, right?
So now you're in Kenya, you're spending the week, you're at a poetry festival.
Yeah.
How did that turn out to, like, how long you been? A year, 2 years?
4 years.
My God.
4 years.
4 years in Kenya?
No, not just in Kenya. I went to 12 African countries in those 4 years.
Okay, let's tell this tale. Let's tell this narrative. You're in Kenya now, you're spending the week, you're doing the poetry festival, representing the Bahamas. Few people can appreciate that as you are so good. So beyond the average poet, right? That you are continuously being invited globally to represent the Bahamas, to herald the Bahamas. And now you're in Kenya representing the Bahamas and with your work and representing yourself too.
Yeah.
How did that become a sojourn for 4 years?
Okay, it's just that I shortly after I got there, I said, no, I can't go home because I've been wanting to come to Africa before I was born. And so I decided that I would have stayed until December. And so I tried to raise funds aggressively. While I was over there, I tried to raise funds aggressively to extend my stay to December.
Raise funds? Raise funds, you call home or you raise funds amongst the Africans?
No, not in Africa at all. But back at home among my patrons, right? I would explain to them what I want to do and where I am and where I want to go and the rest of that. And usually there are some patrons who usually show me some support. Financially, real love, right? But the interesting thing is that I was there in December, and I got to stay until as long as December, and I was still in Kenya. And while I was there, one of the things I was doing to raise funds, because I have a collection of paintings as well, right? Yes. I've always been collecting paintings. And so I attempted to sell several of them.
Amos Ferguson painting? You have a couple of them?
I have just one of Amos Ferguson. And but I have all the best artists in the country. So I also had Brent Malone. I have Stan Burnside. I have Dorman Stubbs. I have Ricardo Knowles. I have... Antonius Roberts. I have a lot of people. I have Eric Ellis. And so somebody wrote back to say, nothing of what you offered am I interested in, but I know you have a Brent Malone. I'm interested in that, right? Mm-hmm. And so they made me an offer. I said, oh, no, I wouldn't let it go for that. So I made them a counter offer, and we settled for like $15,000, right? Okay. And parting with my only Brent Malone painting, and being sort of $15,000 richer.
Yes.
That is how I got to stay for 4 years.
Okay, so
you see?
Let's list off the countries that you
okay,
and briefly explain like what you did in those countries.
Right. Yeah, people would ask me though, okay, you're there for 4 years, and what are you doing? I said, but I'm a writer. That's my job. I write stuff, right? When you're inspired, and that's the whole thing about how to get inspiration, there's a whole sort of trick to that. How to keep whatever you do, like how you rub stones together and make fire. Well, I think that whole creative thing, though, came about from my having studied acting. I have a degree in theater and performance, and so I know how to make creativity, And so I'm always sort of rubbing the whatever stones together to make the sparks fly, right? And so, I always have work to do because I'm always writing stuff. I always have work to polish and that kind of thing. And in wherever I was, that is what I did, because I did not work at all in those 4 years while I was over there.
You didn't work at all.
I didn't work at all, apart from my writing, right? And so from Kenya, I ended up going to Uganda, right? I ended up staying there for 3 months, and I stayed there in a house on a college campus. It's called Nile Vocational Institute. I ended up staying there on that campus for 3 months, and here people were doing like academic things, and so I found my mind wanting to compete with them. I didn't want anybody in the school to be working harder than me, so I ended up writing like 3 collections of poems while I was there, right, in 3 months, and I published 2 of those collections so far. And
how many books do you have now? Published books.
Altogether, there are 28.
28
publications so far, right? And so I was in Uganda for 3 months, and from there, where do you go? So I decided to go to Rwanda, right, because of the genocide, to bring up a really bad memory. I decided that I would go there because I also met a student from Rwanda while I was at Nile Vocational Institute. And she encouraged me to come to visit her country. But I got all the way to the border after traveling on a bus for like 12 hours all through the night, got to the border and realized that you need to have a visa to enter the country.
Oh, okay.
So I had to get off, and I had already crossed out of Uganda to the border of Rwanda, and then I had to be escorted back after it was discovered that I didn't have the necessary visa. And so there I was back in Uganda, and it was, so where do you go from here? And then I started to do research again, contacting friends and all of that for advice and things. And somebody said, why don't you look on the list and see what countries you can visit in Africa without a visa, a Bahamian, right? And so I did that. And so I made a list of all the countries that I could visit without a visa. And then I decided that, I'm going to try to touch all of those countries, right? And so the next place I was going to was Tanzania. And I went to Tanzania, and that was like really, really heavenly. And I ended up going back to Tanzania about 5 times altogether.
Okay.
Yeah, because after spending 3 months in Tanzania, I ended up going to Zambia, and then I went to Zimbabwe, and then I went to South Africa, and then I went to Swaziland, right?
Okay.
Yeah, and then I
connection with Swaziland, so it's good.
Yeah,
with Linden. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, wonderful! And then I got to Mozambique because I thought you didn't need a visa to go there either, and so there I was. And they said, you do need a visa to come to enter this country. And I crawled, I can't even say quarrel. Yeah, that's the word, quarrel. I quarreled with them for a while at the border there. And then it turned out that they were right. And so I ended up, and I was only passing through because I was going through Mozambique to Malawi, right? And when it turned out that I needed a visa and I needed to pay like, what was it, like $70 or something, I think it was. So I ended up spending a month in Malawi, and that was, in Mozambique. And that was like really, really, really fun, yeah. And then they were having some, would you say, internal conflicts in the country, in the north of Mozambique, and so I couldn't go continue north to Malawi, so I ended up going back to Swaziland, and then going back to South Africa, and back to Zimbabwe, and back to Zambia, and then back to Tanzania. And then while I was in Tanzania, my laptop got stolen. And it was interesting because it got me to stay there for a very long time, waiting for the police to recover it or for whatever reason.
Did you find your laptop?
No, it was never recovered. And I nearly died because of that. Because it was all the work that I had done in all of those countries up to that point was on that laptop. So I ended up spending a lot of time waiting to get my laptop back in Tanzania. And then finally the police say, well, I would just suggest that you continue your travels and check with us when you get back. So then I went, now going back, that'll be south. I ended up going to Malawi after all, right?
We are talking to poet laureate That's a new title. The Bahamas needs a poet laureate, and we can lobby for that. Obadiah Michael Smith. And I see we have a caller there who wants to speak to you. Go ahead, caller. Caller, can you hear me?
It is talking away so long with you and my good friend.
Yes, Raymond, let there be light.
Boy, I wanted to know if he remembered me. You're so quick as I day. Obi, what you say?
Hey, wow, that sounds like Raymond.
Yes.
Yeah,
Raymond.
that's me.
Fantastic.
Yeah, man, I haven't seen you for a little bit. I was wondering where you were, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, thank
so
you.
That mean I'm going when you came back?
Actually, I've been back for 4 years, but keeping a very, very low profile. I was in Africa from 2014 until 2018, and so I've been back home for 4 years.
Raymond, you there? Are you going? Okay, excellent. I have a text also. It says that C.A. Nuri, Obadiah taught me English literature in the 80s at 8 Mile Rock High School.
Oh, wonderful.
Truly great to hear his voice.
Yeah.
People miss you.
That's quite
I know
something.
you have a quiet life now, right, as you write, right? But there needs to be a place where we can hear your words. But I guess there's a place for us to read your words. Where can we find your books?
Hey, my books are available at lulu.com online, and that's the printed ones. And then I have recently, since the lockdown, I was on. Can we go on?
Yeah,
since the lockdown, I have actually published 5 ebooks, and they are available online as well at payhip.com, payhip.com. You could buy my ebooks there.
Okay.
Yeah.
And did you bring any poems for me? Because every time I see you, and I can tell you a story while you scan through for my favorite poem, right?
Right.
When I came home from college, right, I wrote the Department of Culture. Few people know that we have a Department of Culture, not necessarily a Ministry of Culture, right? And lamenting to them that there needs to be a repository of Bahamian poetry, a place where all of Bahamian poetry can be found or collected, right? And I said that, is there any kind of writers' society, right, that I can join? Because I was like 19 years old and bold and brazen to write the department. And they wrote me back. They wrote me back a letter. I should have led home and said that you need to contact Obadiah Michael Smith.
Wow.
And they gave me your phone number.
Yeah.
And they gave me the phone number of, let me see if I get the name. Roll. Telsine Turner Roll. And so Telsine Turner Roll was the leader of the Writers Society. And also Sylvia Larimore Crawford.
Right.
They gave me her number.
Right.
3 persons' number they gave me. And I remember trying to either write each one or call everyone. And Larimore Crawford reached out to me and said, basically, who is this? And I said, I'm C.A. Nuri, and I just came back, and I think I'm a poet. I want to write 1 or 2 words, and I need someone to read my work and tell me if it's any good. Should I continue? Can I make money off this, right? And she invited me to join something called the Writers Society of the Bahamas.
Wonderful.
And it was a group of writers who came together and read each other's work, critique each other's work, help each other to get published, right? And then they give tours where you go to different family islands and perform, right? Yeah. And I remember I performed with you once at COB. I'm not sure if you remember.
I remember that really well.
And where you came up and defended me. I'm not sure if you remember the story. I told a Bahamian a poem in Bahamian linguists in dialect.
Right.
And of course, the uppity people at COB at the time said, "How dare you come here and speak this brackish, non-grammatical or full of grammar type?"
Are you serious?
Yeah. And I think the poem was, "Who you think you is wearing lipstick, making something like." And you came on and say, "Hi, I'm Obadiah Smith." This was when you became my hero, and this is the place for literary learning, and there's different styles, and that this is the Bahamas. And if a Bahamian poet wanted to speak in Bahamian dialect, this the place where it should be spoken, right in the midst of the university. So I remember that story. I remember fondly you defended me. I didn't even know you personally then. But it's sad the likes of Sylvia Larimore Crawford, right, is not heralded, and that people know her name and that her name is on their lips. Telsine Turner Roll, who has a number of books, and Woman Take One or Take Two, where it is inside the schools. But these are heroes, heroines, right?
Yeah.
And I think that we need to create a mechanism where these people are heralded and are to be heroes in the culture of the Bahamas, shaping of the Bahamas. And I want to like, you find that poem?
No, yeah, I'm fine.
Let me know you found the poem that I like. I'm asking. Wax paper people. You gotta find it. No.
Yeah, I wanted to read one and then read that.
Then it's
That's
all
okay.
ready now. I'll let you do that
Yeah.
before we go to commercial break. So we
Right,
can do that. But
right.
Wax Paper People is a poem. My first poem is the first poem I heard
You
said,
heard me perform.
recited. Yeah, by Obadiah Smith.
and interestingly enough, it is in Bahamian nation language as well.
Okay.
Wax paper people. Shut your mouth. The tourists come in. What you talking about being black for, about striking back for? You ain't one man the wife spend $1. You want to run them away, eh? What you want to be black for anyway? Hard here so bad you better straighten them. Won't be yourself. Can't be yourself when the skies could put money in the treasury. The sky is so deep, so good, so long. Bahamian man nor woman remember their actual look, their natural self. Now you want to come back, come black? For what? To what? To frighten the tourists? The bread and butter off the table? You choose. Ain't it better to be transparent? So people could walk right through you? Don't even see you?
See,
Yeah.
I see that gives me goosebumps.
Wow.
But read your next one. I want to hear that too.
Right, cool. But interestingly, I remember when Michael Pintard and we used to read together all the time when we were just like fellow poets before he became a great politician. And he, in response to that Wax Paper People, told me that it reminded him of The Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison. That wonderful, amazing American novel and novelist. And I turned to that book and I read that because he suggested that comparison. And I saw the connection that he made, especially because of the conclusion of the poem. How does it go? The conclusion.
Walk straight through.
Yeah, that in it better.
And people
in
forget
it better,
that
in it better to be
that
transparent.
Michael Pintard is a poet.
Is a poet, right?
And we have so many Toastmasters, like Philip Davis is a Toastmaster speaker, Perry Christie is a Toastmaster speaker. We have so many performers in politics, right? And there is still not a place for poets. And I'm concerned, and this is why I'm going to bring you back. Our 50th anniversary, independence anniversary, is some months away.
Yeah.
July will be the 49th, and next year will be the big Jubilee celebration of us being Bahamian. And surely there must be a place for you and likes like you to perform, to have a national poem. That, and we needed for lack of a better word, hire you from now to create a narrative, a poem that you can say to the nation that we can feel it and say, that's us.
Yeah.
That's us in verse. So I'm lobbying for that.
Yeah.
I have another text say, hello, Mr. Obadiah Smith, one of your students from 8 Mile Rock High School. Glad to hear you are still doing well and staying creative. Right?
That's fantastic.
So,
Hello to you too.
Of persons saying that. And say, CA Dr. Gilbert Morris from the old Hawksbill High School has also been inspired and wordsmithly mentioned by Obadiah Smith.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Yeah, really, really interestingly, I have this book called On the Hinges of This Town, and what's his name? Gilbert Morris wrote the preface to this book. Ian Strawn wrote the introduction, and Gilbert Morris wrote the
big
preface.
People in that book.
No, I have a lot of people who do stuff and write introductions to things, really scholarly folk that I am quite impressed with. Yeah, really, really nice stuff. But something that is really very important about what you were just saying has to do with the fact that always there are the barking guns. I have that metaphor for people shooting all the time and killing in our country. And I think that it's important that we have to counter that you need this constant presence of the voice of the poets of the nation. Interestingly, quite a few of the persons whom you mentioned just minutes ago have sadly passed away. They're no longer with us, you know, and that is a tragedy. But because even before we could experience their impact, they're gone. And I think that there is an impact that poetry has to make upon our people, upon the shaping of our country. And it's really so unfortunate that all we get to experience is the dynamics of the cowboys and crooks, of the robbers and the killers and the police and the sirens of the police cars and that kind of thing, right? Whereas we could have the voice of literature, the voice of the writers. They need to be incorporated more, and maybe instead of our being on the fringes, the writers and the poets, that I think then the crime and the criminals would be pushed to the fringes instead. But now they are like center stage, and that is just so unfortunate. And we keep pumping so much money into countering them with the law and the guns of the police and the cars of the police, and we are putting so very little into the writers and into the arts. I think that is an unfortunate way, because I have this story about Colombia, because everybody knows about Medellin, Colombia. That was a very, very negative place because of drugs and crime and all of that. Crime had taken over the place. And they decided to have this poetry festival, and they would invite poets from all over the world, and everything else would be pushed aside for this festival to happen every year. And I can't remember, I think, what was it, the 10th or something festival that I attended, I think in 2010. And at that festival, there were like over 100 poets performing, right? And everything shuts down during the week of this poetry festival. And I understand that the presence of the poetry and the baptism of the poetry, and I just heard somewhere recently about how it is necessary to make sacred to consecrate, to live in consecrated spaces, your house and the town and the city. How do you consecrate the city, the town, the space that the people live in? And I think that is what they did in Medellin, Colombia. They consecrated the space with all of these poets coming from all around the world. And the place was so changed that people could walk, and they could go about, and they could feel safe and feel free. The city was just totally transformed by the presence of these poets every year. There as well, I understand that they turned an AK-47 into a guitar, you see? So we're talking about that kind of transition and transformation.
A paradigm shift.
You see what I'm saying? That kind of thing can be done if we have the initiative, if we have the vision, and we have the focus.
Right.
Yeah.
And before you start that next poem that you're going to read, right? I also want to hear your journey of becoming a poet. Like basically your education, and when you decide that, because I know you taught.
Yeah.
And a number of your students are calling in and giving kudos to you now. But I want to hear the poem, and then we go into how to become a poet.
Okay. This poem, it's called Cardboard Box, and it's in a China Shop and Other Poems, and it was published by Ponciana Paper Press, that the founder of which is Sonia Farmer, who does some really wonderful, amazing works of art that are books, right? And this is one of them that she created. This poem, Cardboard Box. The mind can bend and it can break, or it can blend and it can break like waves up against rocks. The mind can snap, can rip like metal, like a hinge too many times back and forth. The mind can break off from the mind after banging form of life, or we can laugh.
I am smiling, right?
Yeah.
Because to me, you do performance poetry.
Yeah.
Right? Where people must watch you perform and say these things, because you get transpose, you move in the sense of what is happening. And I want to hear one more. I want to hear one more. Definitely got to hear one more, right? And I know one point in time you was on the poetry circuit, right? Where you traveled around New Providence particularly and joined other poets and performed. I remember you used to perform at the Spot. I'm not sure if you remember that. That was some years ago.
Yeah.
I know that you perform at UB's, University of Bahamas' poetry festival, and a number of festivals around here, recitals here. And I'm not sure if that happens anymore in the Bahamas. You know?
It did since I came back from Africa in 2018, and like I said, I traveled from Dar es Salaam in Tanzania, and that is the spot where I left Africa, and I traveled to Romania for a poetry festival there. So I did a performance there, and the poems. There were poems of mine that were translated into Romanian and included in there, and that an anthology that was published that year. So that was quite an achievement and a wonderful thing. But since I've been back home, I have seldom performed, and I'm not sure about what happens where, you know. And then COVID came, and then there was almost a total lockdown and the fear of going out, and now going about with
and the style of
your
poetry has
mask, you know.
changed. We now embrace American slam performance type poetry, which is very performative oriented, in contrast to where we used to do a lot of verse.
Right.
I remember reading Pat Raming's poetry book and said, man, this is a good piece of literature here. This can be compared to anybody. And I see that we have now changed how we perform as we get close to American culture, and we are ontologically American anyway. So even that I see is changing. Go ahead.
No. The only point that I want to make is the fact that I have read maybe 3,000 books, right? And so I am very much oriented towards the making of literature and the work on the page. And then coupled with that, I have a degree in speech and drama in performance. And so I'm a performance entity as well. But usually that performance is taken from the play that has been placed upon the page as well. But the whole thing about stage and page, there's this sort of interesting sort of dynamic, whether you're writing for the stage or whether you're writing for the page, right? And so I can put the work down on the page, meaning that it has to be like really, really accurate and, like like an engraving, as it were, or an etching, right? But etched into the paper and carefully so. But then you can go from there and you can resurrect the work, right? And in the way that an architect makes a blueprint, and then you build that structure and you build it very, very accurately, right? And so there is those two things going on for me, because when people talk about the performance poet, I don't really understand. Only in this way, though, in that some performance poems don't even reach the page. That sometimes people just structure them in a way and memorize them, and then they perform them. So they are intended only for the stage. But most of my works happen upon the page, right? And then they get performed after that.
Obi-Wan, we have a caller. Go ahead, caller. Producer? Go ahead, caller. Can you hear me, caller? Are you on?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Good day to you both.
Good, it's good.
Obadiah, you do wonderful work. To the host, of the show. What's your name again, my friend?
C.A. Nuri.
Nuri, Mr. Nuri, I'm so glad you have Obadiah on. He's doing a wonderful job, and just listening to the show, I'm thoroughly enjoying it. Him telling his travels and stories and reading his poetry. And I like what you said, Obadiah, about fighting back with literature and poetry. Because there's a proverb that says, the pen is mightier than the sword.
Wow.
Yeah, wow, for sure.
So listen, do you have a YouTube channel? Ever thought about that with you to the
Why
camera,
not? Yes,
reading your
yes.
poetry?
Yeah.
Or do you have one?
No, I don't have one. It's just that I have uploaded several poems, several readings to YouTube. Once I was in Mexico at a poetry festival as well, and
excellent.
and there was somebody there who the man is a poet, but he's also a pilot, and so he has technical skills beyond my own. And so he was the first to upload the works readings that he recorded of mine on YouTube. And I think
Isn't that nice?
my reading that I did in Medellin, Colombia as well, the final closing poem, that is on YouTube as well. But the YouTube channel thing, if I had the technical skills or the technical assistant, I would definitely want to make that happen.
I think you do good, man. With a nice set, or perhaps by a calm seashore, and you're reading your poem and you're looking at the camera and reading your poetry, and I think that'll have a very dynamic effect.
Wonderful. What is your name?
My name is Derek Catalano.
Wow.
Oh, okay,
I
musician.
used to host the Native Stew show.
Wonderful. Absolutely.
A long time ago. I think I had you on before,
Yeah.
For my memory right now.
Yeah, wonderful, man. No, it's really amazing that persons like us live apart. Just like the criminals create gangs, people who are for doing good need to be together in a similar kind of way to counteract the negative
I certainly agree.
forces. Yes.
Now, somehow we need to use the media more too, and radio as well, perhaps highlighting, featuring more poetry and more other writers.
Yeah. Oh, wonderful, man.
So that can grow.
Yeah.
And bring awareness to certain issues as well.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so very much.
Just good talking. Just good listening to the show, man. Really
Thanks a lot.
And before you go, Derek, I have your Uncle James Kathleen's book home. Poetry book.
Wonderful.
I'm just saying, I'm listening to you and get this all nostalgic, thinking, I have his book. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
Good. Yeah, Uncle Jim did some wonderful things, man. God rest his soul, and he's certainly one of those cultural icons, and I put Obadiah in that category as well.
Wonderful, man. Thanks a lot.
Okay. You're welcome. Okay. Y'all, I'm enjoying the rest of the show. Continue.
Take care.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead, Obadiah. Read one more.
I'm going to read two because they're very short.
Good.
It's from this book. It's called Discovery Days, DAZE, 72 poems, and this is poem number 12. Tongue in the bell bangs back and forth for the story to be told. All the way forth and all the way back until the bell is black and blue and gold. And this here, let me do two other really short ones. Number 20, able to write, able to wrong with ink or with stone. Able to write, able to wrong, too late or too soon. Able to write, able to wrong at midnight or at noon. And number 21, what I could do with a little half-pint gal? And I done used to a gal and a woman.
I love that. See, what can you do with a half-pint gal when you're used to a gallon of woman? That's just ridiculous. You can't be satisfied. You're always thirsty. I see we have another phone call there. Go ahead, caller. Thank you very much for calling in.
Good morning, sir. How you doing?
You're doing well.
Great. I'm loving the show because I'm a fellow poet. I'm a millennial, but I was writing poetry from 2004. It all started at my grandfather's demise at his funeral. Mm-hmm. At that time, I was only 11. I'm 28 going 29, but I use poetry to channel my emotions, my dreams, my visions, my prayers. And instead of me just crying or having a pity party, I just write. But I like to say a short poem and then I'll leave.
Okay, call it. Let me place you on hold so we go and break, and so I can hear your poem properly, so I can appreciate it. Is that good?
Yes, sir.
I can place you on hold briefly. This is Guardian Radio on the AM. My name is C.A. Nuri. We are interviewing and having an experience with Obadiah Michael Smith. And we're going to have a break right now, and we'll see you on the other side of the show.
We're not always able to see the storms in life approaching, but we can take the necessary steps to be prepared to ensure the safety of ourselves, our loved ones, and our property. This hurricane season, Trust J.S. Johnson Insurance Agents and Brokers. We'll be here to help you get back on track in your time of need. Call 397-2100 or visit jsjohnson.com. J.S. Johnson Insurance Agents and Brokers, giving you peace of mind.
A local paper in Grand Bahama is back every Tuesday as a section of the Nassau Guardian. Available at local stores, gas stations, pharmacies, Western Bakery, and Bellevue Gifts. Daily and, of course, on Tuesdays too. Want to reach your Grand Bahama audience? Then call Barefoot Marketing at 827-4578 or message them for ad rates via their Facebook page. Advertising opportunities now include classified ads too. Keep up with all the latest Grand Bahama news in the Guardian newspaper every Tuesday.
This is Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. Fresh news, smart talk, all day.
And welcome back to Guardian Radio in the AM. I have a caller on the line who wants to share his poems, and I'm interested in hearing it. Just to call, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Okay, first, tell me your name so I can know you when I hear it.
Chris Poetical 93 coming out. Yes, sir. The poem that I'm about to say is Melodic Redemption.
Okay.
Bad times I was faced with, different altercations. I had some observations, deeper meditations, trying to end separation, colder lows of misplacing. My potential and purpose wrapped in cause of miscalculations. I'm just one man. I know where I stand. Disengaged from the program like the silencing of a lamb. I know one man, cuts and bruises, he won but he never lost. He paid our debts and costs. All of our regrets were tossed. That one day it was resolved on the cross. I felt so distant. I know that something is missing. Please listen. Does this missing link make me any different from a Christian? This is my inner melody. I know the enemy wants the end of me is not happening. Go straight, turn left, all right. Follow your visions to be blessed. Do you know where you're going when you die? The road is broad or narrow, so please intersect. That's that.
Nice. I thank you very much, caller. I would love to read more of your work someday. If you can hit me up on Facebook, C.A. Nuri, I'd be happy to listen to more or to hear more, to read what you have. Listening to your poem, it reminds me of, again, Sylvia Larimore Crawford. I remember she and her executive team spending a day listening to me recite poetry and critiquing it. And we no longer have that, where certain words I pronounced differently. And this is where we can go to a segment on how you pronounce word, Obadiah, and how you became a poet. Because I remember that I speak like a hardcore Bahamian accent, so I mispronounce words. So I remember Sylvia Larimore Crawford and Telsine Turner saying, no, you don't say it this way. It's not man, it's man, right? It's an A-N, you know? It's not pain, it's pain with a long A. And I said, where you getting this from? So words and how you say it was important. But I want to hear, how did you become a poet? Yeah. What is your education? Is education important? Why aren't you intimidated on stage? Because I get terrified. Mm-hmm. You say, Cecil, come and perform, I start stuttering. What is it that you do?
Yeah. No, rather interesting. I remember going for, what used to be 99 cents breakfast. Now it's costing you like $3. So I just this morning I'm going for breakfast. I remember hearing a woman order her breakfast, and she wanted like her breakfast with egg, right? Egg
with an egg.
And it's something that and we used to have a store, right? My parents used to have a store, and we used to sell eggs, right? But I wouldn't ever say egg, because it's like egg. It's just such an unsophisticated sound to say egg. But that's how she said it, She said egg, and I thought that I would say egg, right? Yeah. But that's the whole business of what is it? I'm saying my degree is in speech and drama.
Yes.
I have a degree in speech and drama. And anyway,
how important is that? Having a degree in speech and drama?
I was inspired by Sidney Poitier, so I didn't intend to be a writer. I intended to be an actor. I want to be a world famous actor. writer in the footsteps of Sidney Poitier. And so I went to, I was going to start out in this academic way. So I went to a university to get a degree in speech and drama with a specialty in performance, right? And just before I graduated, I had this amazing sort of spiritual experience, right? And I got the shift from pursuing the performing arts to being a writer, because I had begun to write when I was in school. I had written a book before I went to university. I had written a collection of 50 poems, right? And so there in university, just before I graduated, I got a call, you know, a kind of refocus, right, to become a writer. And so I wasn't going to be an actor anymore, and I wasn't going to pursue like fame and fortune anymore.
Not pursuing fortune anymore?
I was going to be a writer. And it's a different thing, because even as a writer, the whole question of being famous or having a great fortune, you come to realize when you're deep in it, that it's not about the fame, and it's not about the fortune, that it's more about the vocation, you know, because I am very much inspired by monks who take vows of celibacy, chastity, and obedience, right? And some of them might even have been rich, and then when they take these vows, they're not even pursuing wealth anymore, right? It's just their vocation and the richness of that, and the kind of things that could happen in a monastery or in the life of a monk, like the great one that inspired a lot of other monks to join the monastery, somebody who has inspired me, because I used to be a big fan of Ernest Hemingway, and I read most of his books. And then I didn't like how he ended his life by taking it, you know. And so I needed to sort of get off of that sort of pursuit and focus, and I needed a new mentor, as it were. And I found myself turning to Thomas Merton and reading a lot or nearly all of his books. And he was a great inspiration. And you just find that the vocation is the reward, you know.
So you read a lot.
Oh yeah, I like I said, I have read about 3,000 books beginning from I was very young, and so you find that the work itself is the reward. Like reading the book is the reward. And I remember that I used to even be reading the books, and I didn't used to understand exactly what the purpose of that was. And then the books themselves began to speak to you. And when you're writing and you think you're writing for one purpose, and then the writing itself began to speak to you, and you find the deeper meaning, you know. And I love, there's this poem by the Nobel laureate from Ireland, whose name is Seamus Heaney. He had the poem, I can't remember the full title of it, but Republic is in the title. I think there are two words, and one of the words is Republic, right? But in that poem, there's this line. It says that your reward is yourself. You know, your reward is yourself, and you don't realize that until you're getting old, and you losing your sight, and you're losing your hearing. And you're losing your equilibrium, and your brain is not as sharp and stuff like that. And you realize that, oh my God, when I was like well and young and stuff, I was really on top of the world. I mean, I had what was priceless, right? Just like the thing like breath, like your breath. I mean, there's nothing in the whole of the universe is as valuable as your breath.
So I want to ask a question based on what you said. Once upon a time, you were a teacher. Why did you leave that to become a poet? And do you consider yourself being as successful in general?
Yeah, the interesting thing is that I got to be a teacher because I was a poet. I had written a book of poems, and I didn't have a teaching certificate. I had written a book of poems, and I went to the Ministry of Education. I said, or the minister, I think it was Minister Coakley at that time. And then they examined the work that I had done. It was Bicentennial Blues, my very first book that I had written in university, or at the close of my stay, or near the end of or just before graduation. I wrote that collection of poems. And so they looked at that book and they said, well, if you could write this, you could teach English, right? But the interesting thing for me, though, was that teaching, the trick for me was that teaching English was an opportunity for me to learn English. Or to learn all the very fine points of grammar, because I find that there are, for example, grammatical mistakes maybe in my first 2 books, and then they go away because I'd been teaching English and I'd been learning the fine points of grammar, and then I even revised. We have to go on now?
Yeah, we do have to go. But
Right.
I enjoy this conversation. That means you have to come back.
Okay.
That means you have to come back so we can continue this education on how to become a Bahamian poet.
Right.
And basically, go ahead.
Close with one.
If it's short,
It's very short.
Go ahead.
It's number 31 and it's in Discovery Days as well.
go ahead.
You must expect the whirlwind to get in if one of your walls is missing, if daddy's not home.
That's Obadiah Michael Smith, who I believe should be called the Bahamian laureate, poet laureate. And I'm pushing to have a national poetry contest for our